is Senate Judiciary. We're taking up restorative justice statistics. And I believe there's a presentation on our webpage. And Willa Farrell is our first witness.
Good morning, Senator Sears. Would you like me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good morning, Senators. My name is Willa Farrell. I work in the Attorney General's office with court diversion and pretrial service programs around the state. I thought I would do a very brief reference to a document that I and my colleagues, both community partners as well as DOC and DCF, prepared and I submitted. It is a one-page document that I believe you have electronically called Court-Based Restorative Justice Services, funded by AGO, DCF, and DOC. And I think Peggy made me a co-host, so I will attempt to share that document. I trust that you can see the document or have it in front of you on your own.
And it's also on the webpage.
Okay, great. Well, very briefly, I thought I would show this to make a few points and anchor my presentation and information about the data and that we in the AG's office collect with our partners. So this document shows what is called the sequential intercept model, the continuum of the criminal and youth justice systems in Vermont, and the point at which we have interventions, most of which, but not all, are restorative justice programming. I guess I just stress the point that approach, it's a set of principles and practices. It's not a program per se, but it is it's a value-based approach to accountability and repairing harm involving all the parties, the victim as well as the offender. So just briefly, I'll note that the programs or services that the AG funds are here. You could see what we call our YSAS program is these are civil violations under the point 1, referrals from law enforcement. Then we have what you were probably most familiar with, court diversion, which is guided again by statute here, these references for youth and adults. We also, in the pre-adjudication world, provide pretrial services, which is not a diversionary process. It is, and it's not a restorative justice program, although it's based on those values. It is a program designed to connect people quickly to treatment as they are going through their court process. My understanding of what you're interested in today are really the restorative justice in programming that we fund, and that is court diversion. So I will switch, and I guess the one other point I'll make is we fund an organization in each county. So the services listed here are available statewide, including those funded by DOC and DCF. And in the AGO grants, we fund one organization per county. Some of those organizations are what are known as community justice centers, but in other communities, it may be a different organization, a different nonprofit. So switching screens, I think I have to stop, unless I should pause for answer any questions or jump to, let's see if I can do this quickly. After 3 years, I would hope I'd be faster at this. The other document I would want to share is the annual report that we prepare and submit to the legislature every year that includes the core data that we collect, which are referrals to our programs. We also do collect other data on closures, gender breakdown, but I think from what I understood, your primary interest today relates to the sorry, I'm multitasking here, opening up this other document to show you It is the report, the last 2 pages of the report that I submitted, pages 7 and 8, which I'm having trouble opening up. So maybe I won't try to do that and just speak to the data unless I could ask Peggy if you are able to pull that up and share the screen, or if people have it in front of them. I apologize for my technical challenges here.
Better than I could do.
It's the.
That's any consolation. While Peggy's trying to draw that,
Okay.
you're funding one in every county,
Yes,
the AGO, right? The Attorney General.
yes. We,
But some counties have more than one community justice center.
yes.
Are you funding all of the different county programs? Like in
We
Chittenden County where they have one at Winooski, one at one
Well, in Chittenden County, we fund one community justice center, the Burlington Community Justice Center. And although it is based within the municipality of Burlington, they do provide services countywide under our grant. In Windsor County, we fund Valley Court Diversion, which provides services for all of Windsor County. And there is also the Hartford CJC. In Lamoille County and Bennington counties, we fund an organizations that are considered CJCs because they also receive funding from the Department of Corrections. So I think I would just note that CJC, or Community Justice Center, is a term to describe an organization, and what we fund are programs that may be administered by a Community Justice Center, or for example, in Orleans County, they are administered by the Community Action Agency. And I see Peggy thankfully helping me by scrolling down, and this page shows the referrals by race. And if you're able to scroll to the next to last page, Peggy, this next one, this shows, I don't have the agency name, just the county name. These data are for the past 3 years, which, as you can imagine, have been years of ups and downs with referrals following the pandemic. But I'll just briefly explain this. So for example, in Addison County, the court received 302 new misdemeanor charges. And in our office, we recorded 68 court diversion referrals, 16 Tamarack referrals. The total of those 2 diversionary referrals is 28% of the new misdemeanor charges. I want to be the first to name, this is a sort of a crude analysis because there are many misdemeanor charges which would never be referred to court diversion. And we also receive felony charges that are included in those referrals. But it's been a sort of a document that we've prepared annually for a number of years, just to give a picture of how many cases, what percentage of cases are being resolved through court diversion. I will note that if you look at Chittenden County, the last 2 years, the percentage is fairly low. And that is a reflection of the fact that many of the charges that in another county would go to court diversion are resolved through a pre-charge process where the person is not charged in court, but is referred directly. And that is a set of services that is funded by the Department of Corrections.
One question.
Yes.
Hi, Will. It's Senator Hashim here. Just a quick question about the statistics. I'm looking at, comparing 2020 to 2021 and then 22, and it looks like the percentage is dropping, from 2020, 27%, and then 21%, and then 20% for 2022. And could you just touch a bit on more on why that number is dropping?
Mhm. I think there are a couple of factors. My analysis of this is it's a lot related to the pandemic and the case backlog, and that both law enforcement and prosecutors are putting their attention on cases that are more serious, and that even though within diversion we do receive cases of simple assault and cases with large amounts of restitution, they are for the many instances of a, less serious, perhaps, not for the individuals involved, but less affecting public safety. I think that's the primary reason for the decline. And these rates are still higher than they were, I want to say 2017 or 16. I would have to double check my notes on that point. So the number, and what I have seen, and I'm sure others have seen over the years, is the numbers fluctuate a lot, depending on, it doesn't take too much to change some of these numbers. It's still, I think the bottom line when I see this is still, about a good 20 to 25% of the cases that are coming to courts are being referred outside the court system to court diversion. We also gather successful completion rates. Very briefly, we have higher success in family division. About 95% of youth who come to court diversion complete the program successfully. In the criminal division, adults, it's about 85%. That figure has been, used to be higher. It has lowered primarily because we're getting a lot of criminal DLS cases. And as I think many of you know, in order to be charged with a crime of DLS, that means you've had, I believe it's 5 or 6 civil violations. So people at this stage often have a lot of debt or other requirements they need to meet in order to regain their driver's license. It can take a lot of time, and we just don't have as high a success rate with people referred for DLS. And then the other factor is the Tamarack referrals. Tamarack is a program for people who have substance use problems or a mental health treatment need. And again, those individuals often have a lot of needs in their life and may have extensive, more longer criminal history. They are at higher risk for not being able to complete their contracts. So I hear frequently from court diversion staff that they're working with people with very complicated lives, dealing with all the pressures that you hear, I'm sure, in many other settings around housing and employment, all of these factors in life which can contribute to the instability that doesn't bode well for someone's success in this program.
It doesn't mean that I would hate to see us end that.
I agree. Yeah. I mean,
statistics. Even though that, you're talking a much more difficult group, obviously, with other problems, but sometimes we tend to, if things aren't going well, we just scrap the program, and there seems to be people that are benefiting.
I would agree. I mean, within Tamarack, we still have about a 65% of the people referred complete the program successfully, which I think is still a good success. And I think it's important to remember that people who are struggling with a substance use disorder or have a mental health problem are, we're talking about complicated needs and that people may need to engage in treatment more than once. They may have trouble accessing treatment. And it takes time for people to turn their lives around. And I also feel that, the process that we're engaging people in through a restorative process is very valuable and really is, victims have opportunities to engage and to talk about what happened to them and what they would like to see in terms of repairing the harm. There are many benefits that may not be apparent just by looking at this one metric of successful completion rate. And thank you, Peggy, for sharing the screen. That I have similar data for family division, but I'm aware of the time, and those were my comments and the data I wanted to quickly review with you, Senator Sears. I'm happy to obviously answer any other questions.
I wonder if there's any other questions. If not, we'll go to Chris Barton.
Yes. Peggy, could you put up the stats for that Isaac had sent?
Oh, I didn't know we were gonna do that.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, I'm gonna find it first. Can you show me which one you sent me? Right here.
Beautiful, thank you.
Oh, excuse me.
It's a little small print, but we shared the last 5 years of data here. Reparative and reparative without probation are post-adjudications on that intercept. You see the post-adjudication, we're averaging about 410. And you can, you'll notice that the 2020, from there down, it went down, and part of that is because of the courts. That as that number went down, our pre-charge numbers went up. Criminal direct is either direct from law enforcement or direct from the state's attorney pre-adjudication, and that number you can see as one number went down, the other went up. And as Willow was presenting how the diversion numbers had gone down, she said some of those cases were being handled pre-charge or criminal direct. That's where that number went up. So it went from 576 to 890 from FY20 to 21. So you see that substantial increase as the courts were either not open or focusing on more serious offenses. They were deflecting more cases toward that pre-adjudicated model. And you can see places like Bellas Falls and Bennington that had zero or relatively low numbers went up. Brattleboro went up substantially. So some communities that either used it on a limited basis or not at all began to use that more as access to the courts were less available for those lower level offenses. You can tell Chittenden County has used that substantially. Burlington, Essex, South Burlington, Williston, you see those numbers are averaging right around or above 100 over that 5-year span, and they ramped up in 2021 there as well. So again, those are coming direct from law enforcement or from the state's attorney, deflecting them to the community justice centers. We have 17 currently community justice centers throughout the state. They're either, in some cases, they're tied in with the diversion and barge providers. In some places, they're standalone. In Chittenden County, the Burlington Community Justice Center, which receives a Department of Corrections funding through CEDO, also holds the diversion contract, but we have 3 others there, Essex, South Burlington, and Williston, that don't have the diversion contract. That's the only county where we have 4 Washington County, we have 2, one in Barry and one in Montpelier. And then Windham and Windsor County, we have one that has northern Windsor, one that has southern Windham, and one that straddles because the AHS district has an office in Springfield, which has half of each county. So they're tied to those probation and parole offices in that part of the state. Our total number of restorative justice panel cases includes reparative without probation, criminal direct, any other referrals that they may receive from other sources. Sometimes our probation and parole offices will send furlough violations to our community justice centers to use a restorative justice process to manage those behaviors instead of returning someone back into the incarcerative setting. So, so that total number are those 3 categories plus another category of other, and you see all those RJ panel cases, and the number to the right is the total. There we go. We're averaging 1,456 over that span statewide. If you scroll down, you'll also see that we use restorative justice for reentry as well. Those are volunteer hours. If you go down a little bit lower, in that last column on that intercept model that Willow had presented, reentry, circles of support and accountability is those numbers where it's 62, averaging 64. Those are circles of support and accountability. They're targeted as high risk folks coming back out of long incarcerative sentences, or folks that return and come back and return and come back, to support them with a circle as they come out of community members, to support them and hold them accountable to living in society. And then the unique individuals are the total number of folks that our community justice centers work with on reentry. Some of that may be resource navigation, helping them navigate coming back into community. It may be life skills courses that they offer. It may be something similar to COSA, but less intense. And our justice centers work with over 500 on average folks coming out of incarceration. So, and then the volunteer hours related to the reentry program is about 9,700. So our justice centers, if you add both of the volunteer hours, they actively engage our communities, and both on the lower offense end, keeping people out of incarcerative setting, and then on the other end, re-entering the community to help them succeed once they get out. Any questions on this? Yes.
I have a couple. So one of my questions is around capacity and whether or not the system as it is set up currently has the capacity to support more individuals.
So on the restorative panel side, we're pretty much at capacity. It would take more funding, I think, to increase capacity. Most of our centers are running fairly close to full capacity, and sometimes beyond. They do more than we actually fund them to do. So if we were to increase capacity, one area where we're looking to increase capacity is on those furlough violations, tying in with the Justice Reinvestment, JRI, trying to identify behaviors before they rise to the level of a behavior that would send them back to incarceration, and having our justice centers use a restorative approach, similar to that restorative justice panel approach, to work with those behaviors and help them understand the impact of their actions on themselves, on the community, and on others in the community. So we're looking to increase capacity there, but our centers have let us know that if we were increasing that capacity, we've got to lessen some other capacity or increase funding, because they're pretty much running at capacity right now, and sometimes they're stretching
Yes, and then my other question is just what I keep hearing from different people is that there isn't equitable access across the state to restorative justice services. And yet I'm hearing today we do have these services in every county. So I'm trying to
Right.
understand the disconnect here.
Yeah, we do offer these in every county. Some counties have more than others, but each county, other than Essex County, has a center. The Orleans covers northern Essex, Caledonia covers southern Essex, and we have a center in Franklin County in St. Albans that covers Grand Isle as well. So we don't have an actual center in Grand Isle or in Essex County, but we have centers that cover those. All of the other counties have a community justice center in the county, and some have more than one.
And are they providing the same suite of supports and services in every county?
As far as the programs that Department of Corrections funds, yes.
Okay.
But those look different, as Willa had mentioned. Sometimes it's a one-stop shop, like Bennington has one center that has all of the grants and contracts for RJ, and other places, like Orleans, there's a community justice center that is just DOC funded, and then the Northeast Kingdom Community Action has the other. In Rutland, there's a Rutland Center for Restorative Justice that has a diversion contract, and then Brock has the Department of Corrections grant. So they may look different, but the same services are available in every county. Any other questions around this data? And Jess has produced some efficacy data that Isaac had sent for you guys to look at another time.
Okay, let's go ahead with Lindy Boudreau. Oh, Lindy is on Zoom.
Yes, I am. Good morning. Thank you, Senator. For the record, this is Lindy Boudreau I'm the Juvenile Justice Director from DCF. So I'm also the Program Manager for the Balanced and Restorative Justice Program. So just a little bit of context, the goal of the BARGE program is to support youth who are involved in or at risk of becoming involved in the justice system by providing interventions that are rooted in the restorative principles that reduce or eliminate further involvement in the system. So BARGE is really a key component of the services that we can provide, because traditionally our work with adolescents is incident specific. So the good piece about the BARGE contract is that we're able to provide prevention supports and interventions to youth before they enter the system, or to keep them from becoming further involved in the system. So in that way, BARGE is extremely important. I need to apologize. My data is different than my DOC and AGO colleagues. I did submit fiscal year 21 to Peggy. We had some changes in our tracking system here, so we're still trying to pull together 22. If the committee would like, I could send some comparison data to you all when we get that. But Peggy does have that information, and because of the services that BARGE provides, they're very different than the services that are provided by AGO and DOC. So we track the data very differently. And you'll see that in the information, but I can provide some highlights as far as the youth that were served in 21. So we had 85 pre-charge referrals and 191 pre-adjudication referrals. Those two referral sources are heavily impacted by the state's attorneys. The following referrals can come from DCF, from community providers, from families themselves, from schools. So that's not impacted so much by the state's attorneys or law enforcement. And those for those, we had 191 truancy referrals, 272 at-risk referrals, which in our system, those are traditionally those youth who are beyond the control of their parents. We had 167 adjudicated youth referrals, and those are delinquency cases. And then we had 47 youthful offender referrals. So for FY21, BARGE program served 953 youth statewide. As the chart indicated that Willa shared, BARGE is accessible across all points of the sequential intercept model. We do have availability across all 14 counties. We have we have 10 providers, and they cover all 14 counties. So 4 of them, as folks have already testified, 4 of the barge providers also hold the DOC and AGL contracts. So we have kind of one-stop shopping, if you will, for restorative services in those areas. And we also have 10 of the providers also hold the court diversion contracts. So I think sometimes folks kind of lump barge services in with court diversion because of that long-term association. But as I mentioned, referrals can come from various different places. Access to the services, the contracts are all the same. I will note that some providers might be more adept at offering some restorative skills and groups for the youth in their county, whereas other counties may not do that work so much because they have a local provider who really is strong in those, so they refer those services out. But all the providers have the same contract, and they can offer all of those services across the state. And I don't know if folks want to see the data. It's really it's about case management, restorative classes. We do have information related to the YASI pre-screens, which barge traditionally does for determining how a case should be, or recommending rather how a case should be, whether it should be prosecuted or not. So that information was submitted.
I haven't received anything from you or your department that I know of.
Oh, they didn't send it. Oh, my apologies. They reported that they sent it to me, sent it yesterday.
I could have missed it, but I don't see it.
Okay, sorry. Macy said she sent it. I don't know if I can share my screen. I have it up, but
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Okay, that's all right. If
Okay,
you can send it along, we
yeah, I'll resend it. I'll send what we have, Senator Sears, and then as I get the 22 data, I'll do a 3-year comparison and send that to committee if that would be helpful.
Yes.
I have a quick question. So you said that each center can offer the same suite of services. Are they required to offer the same suite of services or simply able?
I don't require them. It's not required in their contract simply because in some communities, there may be a really strong connection with Spectrum, for example, and they may already have those groups running. So instead of having a duplication of efforts, we want them to be able to refer to folks who have it and use their resources in a way that fills a gap, if you will, in that county.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. One last thing I just want to add related to the data, and this is just following a question that you asked, Chris, related to capacity. So one of the pieces with the data referrals, if there is a dip with the data, with the number of referrals, that's traditionally not a reflection of need, it's a reflection of capacity. We do realize here at Family Services that barge is in desperate need of increasing their capacity, essentially in every program around the state. And so we're working on doing that now.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate the testimony. Brings us back to S6, which is the custodial interrogation of juveniles.
We'll take 2 minutes maybe.
Yep.
Just for a break.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Right, we're just out of schedule.